All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials, grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Boraski?
Here.
Mrs. Kosky?
Present.
Mr. Radke?
Present.
Mrs. Schmidt?
Present.
Mr. Yanas?
Here.
Mrs. Yarko?
Present.
Thank you, Council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me begin with the housekeeping item. Next Monday, October 9th, our city offices will be closed for an in-service training day. So just wanted to let the community know about that. However, will not change our refuse collection schedule. So again, that's Monday, October 9th, an in-service training day for our employees. And Mayor, on the next item, I'm really pleased to introduce one of our city planners, Alexis Richards, who's going to highlight the carbon inventory study that we're about to launch, assuming City Council approves the item on consent this evening. And this is certainly in line with our sustainability plan and is something that was requested early on in our budget hearings earlier this year. So we're pleased to be able to kick this off this evening. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Alexis Richards.
All righty. Good evening, Council, Mayor Taylor, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Koszybski. Thank you for having me here tonight to discuss how we're going to be furthering sustainability in Sterling Heights. So tonight we'll be going over some background, our request to Council, and then some of our sustainability goals. To begin, ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, is the first and largest network of local governments devoted to solving the world's most intractable sustainability challenges. Their standards, tools, and programs credibly, transparently, and robustly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve lives and livelihoods, and protect natural resources in the communities that they serve. ICLEI has developed a number of tools that can be utilized by their members. One of the tools is ClearPath, an online software platform for completing greenhouse gas inventories, forecasts, climate action plans, and monitoring at the community-wide and government operations scales. Through the software, municipalities are able to, 1, create a baseline inventory of their greenhouse gas emissions, 2, forecast emissions and produce business-as-usual scenarios based on custom factors, 3, explore actions using over 60 calculators modeling greenhouse gas reductions from specific actions, and 4, monitor progress by tracking each action and the energy savings and reductions achieved. Another is the greenhouse gas contribution analysis. This would be utilized in conjunction with ClearPath and provides tools and templates to gather data. Learn, or the Land Emissions and Removal Navigator, deals with the emissions and the sequestering associated with forest and urban trees, which is also helpful when conducting an inventory. The greenhouse gas protocols, as developed by ICLEI, ensure that the inventories are conducted utilizing a standardized methodology. Lastly is ICLEI Community, which facilitates local government best practice sharing. With an ICLEI membership, members have the option to utilize the software to conduct their own inventories, or they can contract with ICLEI to have them compile the data necessary, provide technical assistance, and write a narrative report of the findings. ICLEI has adopted 5 pathways to provide cities with a framework for designing integrated solutions that balance the patterns of human life and the built and natural environments. Local governments that are members can use these pathways as a guide for sustainable urban development through systemic change. Low-emission development reduces pollutants and emissions, aims to achieve climate neutrality, and promotes renewable energy by divesting from fossil fuels and using nature-based solutions. Resilient development makes resiliency a core part of all municipal strategies and prepares for new risks and impacts, taking into account the rights and needs of vulnerable sections of our society. Equitable and people-centered development ensures that the natural and built environments in and around cities improve livability and safety, promote human health, and mitigate the transmission of diseases. Nature-based development protects and enhances the biodiversity and ecosystems in and around our cities, which underpin key aspects of our local economies and upon which we depend for the well-being and resilience of our communities. Nature-based development seeks out blue and green infrastructure options and promotes green zones to reconnect and engage with nature in our urban world. Circular development, together with new models of production and consumption, builds sustainable societies that use recyclable, shareable, and regenerative resources to end the linear model of produce, consume, and discard, while continuing to meet the material and development needs of a growing global population. Circular development decouples urban economic development from resource consumption and environmental degradation and factors environmental and social costs into the price of goods and services through equitable access to resources, closed-loop urban systems, and sustainable waste management options. In addition to the tools and resources included within ICLEI membership, a significant benefit of becoming members is the knowledge and capacity building that occurs between both members and ICLEI experts. Each ICLEI member is assigned a dedicated ICLEI technical advisor to serve as their go-to resource for greenhouse gas emissions management, sustainability and climate planning, biodiversity and SDG action, peer city collaboration, and more. Members also receive one-on-one technical support and enrollment in facilitated group training cohorts that are hosted annually. ICLEI is an international organization. However, we would specifically be joining, if council approves, ICLEI USA. There are 300 ICLEI members spread across the nation, with 10 located here in Michigan. The bulk of our request here tonight is to allow ICLEI to conduct a greenhouse gas emissions inventory of our city operations, a community-wide greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and lastly, to write a narrative report outlining the findings of the two inventories. Conducting an inventory of our emissions is the first step we can take to accurately start reducing the city's greenhouse gas emissions. Once we have a baseline understanding, we can then use that data to evaluate progress and determine policy decisions. There's a common saying that you cannot manage what you don't measure, which is particularly true in the case of greenhouse gases. As Sterling Heights continues its journey to become a more sustainable community, it is important to ensure that city staff have the resources and capacity necessary to undertake the work required. Through becoming members of ICLEI, city leadership and staff will have the ability to learn best practices and utilize the materials and methodology of other successful municipalities. Further, tools like ClearPath provide the ability to measure and track the city's emission, a goal of both the Sterling Heights Sustainability Plan as well as City Council. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm open for any questions.
So Mayor and Council, we look forward to reporting back to you as this process is underway throughout the remainder of the fiscal year, and also engaging and collaborating with the Sustainability Commission. They're going to be an important part of this entire process. So we thank you and Councilman Yanes as well for initiating the idea during the budget hearings. I think this is far more robust than what we initially talked about at the budget hearing, so I'm pleased about that. Okay, lastly, on my report this evening, at the conclusion of tonight's agenda, I'm requesting the City Council convene a closed session pursuant to Sections 8C and 8D of the Open Meetings Act to discuss negotiations connected to a collective bargaining agreement and to consider the purchase or lease of real property. And Mayor, that concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. We have two presentations tonight, always one of the best nights of the year. The first up is the 2023 Beautification Awards, presentation from the Chairman of the Beautification Commission, Gary Isom. Mr. Isom.
Good evening. I'm Gary Isom, Chairperson for the Sterling Heights Beautification Commission. Tonight, it gives me great pleasure to present our 2023 Beautification Awards. The Sterling Heights Beautification Commission's mission is to encourage all city residents and property owners to preserve and enhance the beauty of public and private properties. One of the ways we do that is through our annual awards ceremony, where we honor those who go above and beyond in beautifying their Sterling Heights properties. Tonight, we carry on that tradition here before this body. We thank you for welcoming this presentation as we showcase our residents and business leaders' dedication to making Sterling Heights a more beautiful place to live, work, and play. For the past 5 months, The Beautification Commission welcomed nominations from citizens who wish to recognize the Sterling Heights property for outstanding beauty resulting from the planting of annuals and perennials. The commission reviewed photographs taken of more than 40 nominated homes, businesses, and places of worship. Commissioners judged nominations and selected a best of the best from each category that had a wow factor when seen from the curb. Commissioners selected winners based on overall beauty, aesthetics, and artistic use of color. Each nomination will be presented in the categories of single-family residential properties, commercial properties, multifamily properties, and places of worship. A best of the best recipient will be honored in each of the categories, as well as 2 runners-up in the residential category. I'd like to thank all the beautification commissioners here tonight for their dedication to this program. Nancy Kajak, Linda Mida, Sue Hobig, Steve Duncan. To the best of the best, the runners-up recipients here tonight, please wait until the end of this presentation, and we will invite you all up to take a photo with the City Council. A photograph of each of the honor edges will be shown on Sterling Heights TV and here on the video screen.
Commercial properties. Rick Mann Construction Headquarters. Christian Financial. Credit Union 1. Mangia Bevi Urban Italian. Multifamily properties. Laurel Valley Apartments. Nottingham Cove. Sterling Knolls Apartments. Places of worship. Hope Crossing. Residential properties. 2073 Sarah Drive. 2241 Camel Drive. 5104 Wyndham Drive. 5196 Atwood Court. 8483 Crestview Drive. 8721 Alwart Drive. 8726 Shannon Drive. 11125 Granada Drive. 11242 18 Mile Road. 11409 Francis Drive. 11727 Wheaton Drive. 11336 Village Drive. 13843 Bathgate Drive. 14022 Coldwater Drive. 14143 Hillsdale Drive. 14267 Lakeshore Drive. 14327 Peterborough Drive. 34382 Fontana Drive. 35377 Evanston Avenue. 36819 Adele Drive. 37281 Bellcrest Drive. 14143 Hillsdale Drive. 37905 Watkins Drive. 38120 Sumter Drive. 39510 Urbana Drive. 41912 Gainsley Drive. 42247 Sycamore Drive. 43085 Hyde Park Drive. 43243 Chardonnay Drive. 11735 Seaton Drive. And now for the best of the best. Commercial properties. Ventimiglia Italian Foods. Multifamily properties. Arden Courts Memory Care. Places of worship. St. Matthias Catholic Church. Residential properties. 4466 18.5 Mile Road. Slavka Milinkovic. Runners Up. 36239 Melbourne Drive. Denise and Wally Bronson. 34401 Amsterdam Drive. Lorenzo and Linda Howard.
Best of the best and runners-up recipients, please come up and take a photo with City Council.
Reformat.
Want to go in the back? I'll tell you what, when we sat up here, I thought that picture looked pretty good. I did too. When, I don't remember, we did it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you just kind of stood up.
Stayed up here.
You could actually see you. Yeah. That's not a good thing.
Not that anyone cares.
I was gonna say, that's not a good thing. Trying my best not to be there.
Okay.
Oh, sometimes it's nice. I'm just
Wally's cheating. What? Wally's always cheating. No. I know.
Zoom is a wonderful thing. Yeah, it's only full
Yep.
around with the sheriff that it goes back like this. I'm not going around with the hands.
It should,
Yeah, look, this is where I'm at.
Sure.
That's not good. As they said, I know where to fix it.
Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's Beautification Awards. And as a reminder, Halloween decorations for Sterling Heights Beautifications Commission's Spooky House Contest have begun.
I'm good.
You have until October 31st to get your pictures into the Community Relations Department. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Isom. And council, we do have a suggested action.
Okay, Mayor Taylor.
Mrs. Sarowski.
Resolved to individually and collectively recognize the 2023 Beautification Award winners and thank them for their dedication and effort in making their properties, neighborhoods, and the city of Sterling Heights a more beautiful place to live, work, and play.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just very briefly, you guys, thank you so much for the work that you did on your homes. It is a lot of work, I do know. I try to make mine look very nice. It's never been awarded or never been nominated, so very jealous of your work. And thank you again for all the beautiful homes that you made for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarowski. Council, anyone else? Mr. Radke.
I think Liz said it all. These homes are, and businesses are great examples of what makes Sterling Heights great, and I appreciate all the work people put into beautifying their homes and businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else? Just to echo that, thank you all. We really do appreciate it. So many residential properties, commercial properties, everything in between. And, I think the city has tried to lead on this and make our city campus look as nice as possible, make our roadways look as nice as possible. And I think it does have an impact on the neighborhoods as well. And hopefully the work that you all did is inspiring your neighbors as well. So council, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And before I ask everyone if they want to leave. You're certainly under no obligation to leave. You can stay as long as this meeting is going. But, sometimes people just, they like to come for what they're here for. But I'm asking you to stay for one more because we have another presentation tonight. And this is a presentation of the Nice Neighbor Award. And who's handling the Nice Neighbor Award tonight?
Dawn?
Dawn?
No, I think that were you just gonna read it, Mayor?
I could. I don't have the award though.
Oh, we have these awards for after out in the hallway for a photo.
What about the Nice Neighbor Award?
This is what it usually is, and then it's usually just the agenda statement.
So we got, okay, normally it's up here, but that's okay. We did the beautification awards a little differently. We can do the Nice Neighbor Award a little differently. So I will take it. So this is a presentation of the Nice Neighbor Award, and what we do with the Nice Neighbor program is award somebody who has gone above and beyond to make the city of Sterling Heights a great place to live. This award honors homeowners and businesses that improve the quality of life for their neighbors. And the Community Relations Department is actually presenting this award to the Sterling Heights residents that reside on the west end of Farmdale Drive for recognition as recipients of the Nice Neighbor Award. Gerald Scott, a homeowner on Farmdale Drive. Yeah, Gerald. Nominated his neighbors for the Nice Neighbor Award. In support of his nomination, Mr. Scott states that 10 different families residing around the cul-de-sac have adopted the island in the middle and contribute to the beautification and maintenance of this large area. Mr. Scott states, our cul-de-sac island is manicured with beautiful landscaping that includes mulch rocks, manicured shrubs, bushes, and trees. There's also many landscaping lights around the whole cul-de-sac to light up at night. This past year, the neighbors decorated the cul-de-sac for the holiday season with lights and decorations, and Mr. Scott concludes his nomination by noting that we are very proud of our island and the beautiful landscaping shows just what happens when 10 families put in hard work all year to keep it up. Now, I hope all 10 are, because I know if I was in that neighborhood, you'd be knocking on my door saying, Taylor, when are you going to get out here and do something? So I hope every neighbor is pitching in. This is exactly what I was just talking about. When we all take care of our yards, it's infectious and it spreads. So I want to thank all of you and congratulate all of you for receiving this Nice Neighbor Award. And do we want to have Mr. Scott come on up and accept it and maybe make some comments and talk about it? Or any one of you is welcome to come up and tell us a little bit about your neighborhood and the neighbors and the work you guys do.
How about a round of applause, Mayor?
Yes.
On behalf of myself and behalf of our neighbors in the Farmdale Court and all the people in Sterling Heights, thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure. We just try to keep up with the city, and we light up our island in the wintertime for Christmas. It's lit up for 5 weeks. Come and see it. We don't have any gifts, but come and see it.
It'll be cute.
It's been a pleasure. I joined the city of Sterling Heights in '75, but it took me 12 years to move to Sterling Heights, which my brain wasn't working very well. I came home one day and my daughter said, "Dad, you speak so much of Sterling Heights. Why are we living in Dearborn Heights?" So the next day, I went out, found a real estate, bought a home, and I've been here ever since. It's been an absolute pleasure. The city is outstanding, and I couldn't ask for anything more. Thank you, Consul. Thank you, all the people. It's just fantastic.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you.
I'd like to add on a little side note, Stan Michael Cabbage, I reside also on the Farmdale Court. We call Mr. Scott the mayor of our court. When we light, years and years ago, we would light up the court, he would have an electrical light from his house all the way to the court so the lights go up. So before the plows would come, he'd go out and unplug it. So then they decide to pave the court. So he goes and asks if he can have a water line and electrical line underneath here so he doesn't have to go out at night and unplug. So now he runs the water and electricity from his house to light up the court. So
That's incredible.
we call him the mayor of Farmdale.
I wasn't very bright at that time. I ran a wire from my house to the island, thinking, hey, so one night the snowplow came and I didn't have any more lights. So when the street was being repaired, I approached the gentleman and asked him if we could funnel and put a 3-inch pipe, and it's fantastic. It's just underground, and we have meters and turn them on, and it's fantastic. It's safe, it's beautiful, it enhances our property, and we're very, very proud to be part of Sterling Heights.
Well, that is incredible, and I can tell you, you can continue to serve as the mayor of Farmbrook Court. I am, I jokingly say I'm the mayor of 36 square miles, except for a couple thousand square feet right here where I spend most of my time, where, somebody else is in charge. But that is very cool. That's a great story, and proud to have residents like you guys, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Well, before I did all this, I was very fortunate to be a neighbor of Paul O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And I approached him and said, "Paul, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this?" I said, "I need something in writing." So he came back and said, "Yes, you can do this."
Get counsel on
And
that.
we enjoy it. The kids that come, and it's just fantastic. So
That's awesome.
again, thank you, Sterling Heights.
Thank you, thank
God
you.
bless you.
We appreciate you. And council, we do again have a suggested action.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
move to present the residents residing on the west end of Farmdale Drive with a Nice Neighbor Award in recognition of their efforts to assist the community and contributions to making Sterling Heights quality of life second to none.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I think they said it all. I'm so happy to have people like this in our community, Mr. Mayor.
I agree, Mr. Radke. Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. One more big round of applause for everyone awarded tonight. Thank you, thank you. So council, we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda. And if you would like to make a quick exit, you are certainly welcome to, but we are going to be talking about, yes?
Are we supposed to go out in the lobby and take a picture?
Do we, well, let's see, do we want to take a picture? Okay, then let's take a recess. We'll take about a 5-minute recess. We'll go out and take some pictures, and we'll be back to talk about shipping container storage. We'll stand in recess. All right, calling this meeting back to order. We will proceed with the next item on our agenda, which is an ordinance introduction. And this is to consider introduction of an ordinance, amending zoning ordinance number 278 to allow shipping/storage containers with special approval land use approval as an accessory use to permitted and special approval land uses in M1 and M2 zoning districts. We have a presentation from our city planner and city development manager, Dr. Jake Parcell. Dr. Jake.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Koszubski. I have in front of you a fairly straightforward, completely new text amendments is an ordinance update for shipping containers. So a little bit of background. Since I started here, there's been an advent of storage, somewhat unpermitted and unregulated through these metal storage containers in commercial districts throughout the city. Problems are that they cover landscaping, they're visible from the right-of-way, some people stack them quite high, which creates hazards. Other people put them over parking spaces, which is a concern when you go through site plan approval. So the Office of Planning worked with our code enforcement and city development team to introduce an ordinance to regulate these shipping containers on industrial parcels. This allows for them to be housed on industrial parcels with a special approval land use as an accessory to the main business. We found through working with businesses that people will use them for modular movement, putting machines or different equipment in them, moving them to job sites, and then bringing them back and housing them at their industrial use. Common for cement work, landscaping, and items of the like. But what this does not do is regulate them for permanent usage within a commercial district. You're allowed to do that through a temporary use permit with the city. So if you are having a holiday sale, some type of grand opening or event, or you're completely remodeling inside following a fire, a flood, etc., you can have this inside to store inventory or items from your store or furniture. And then you can reload the store and remove it from the commercial district. That way we can work on long-term storage solutions with our commercial business owners. Planning Commission reviewed this at the May 10th meeting. It was recommended by approval to council at 7-0. It's been pushed back a few months because we've been going back through and reassuring that we are doing this with all the conditions that make this safe for people in the community. So we add two definitions as well for shipping containers and storage containers. This is generally a basic kind of the headline Wikipedia photo of what you see when we reference this. There are two definitions basically cover this and those types of pods and other types of accessory storage. The issues that we tried to cover through our conditions of approval are looking at ones that are in disrepair. So you see here examples of ones that are rusted or kind of more damaged from being on the job site. We ensure that they will be cleaned up through our ordinance through the special approval land use process, and also that we're eliminating hazards this way. We don't allow them to be stacked higher than 15 feet, as I'll get to on the next slide, and also no storage of flammable materials inside of them to prevent explosions, kind of like you see in this one right here. So there are conditions of approval that will come with every special approval for this accessory use. They must be screened from view with landscaping, masonry walls, or fencing, similar to what you see in our screening requirements in our zoning ordinance. Located in the rear yard only, complying with all setbacks. Cannot be stacked past 15 feet in height. This falls in line with what we allow for all accessory structures. They cannot be used for advertising or signage purposes. That way you can't be affording extra signs outside of the side code, something that is covering the entirety of the shipping container. It does mention in here that for signage, there is a reasonably sized logo or identification to be allowed on them. So when you take them to a job site, you can identify your company. But this way you're not putting them out by the road with a sign that covers the entirety of the shipping container. Must be well maintained with the property maintenance code, free of graffiti and rust. No storage of hazard materials or fire materials that can cause fires in the containers. You may think, well, they're metal, but as anyone in the fire department will tell you, anything can burn or explode if they have this in there. So we want to regulate this from a life safety standpoint. No plumbing or electrical, also for water and fire issues. Cannot occupy parking or landscaping to make sure that they're not inhibiting anything on an approved site plan, and must be placed on an approved foundation to prevent destruction of the foundation or parking lot underneath. So I'm open for questions with this, but I think the city planning and city development and code enforcement especially is quite excited about this ordinance. Really will help kind of regulate these and work with our business owners for not only permanent solutions, but safe solutions in our commercial districts for storage of materials, and also allow our industrial users to kind of be able to operate their businesses as they have been with these on site. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jake. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
Resolved to introduce the ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 278 to allow shipping storage containers as accessory uses to permitted and special approval land uses in M1 Light Industrial District and M2 Heavy Industrial District zoning districts.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mrs. Zarko?
I just have a couple of questions, so through the chair to Dr. Parcell. One is, how will the inside of these containers be inspected?
So typically when we look at these, the inside will have to be something accessory to the usage. So when we bring them to planning commission, they'll be able to tell us what they're for. And then we kind of regulate the noxious uses in them. So no flammable materials, no live electrical or no plumbing. And then our code enforcement will review them on site. So we'll have an idea of what they're going to be used for through our pre-application meetings with the people who come in before they go to planning commission. And then we'll be able to look at the use from that way. I don't know how the inside will be inspected regularly because it really will depend on the business use. So I'm happy to bring this up before adoption so that we can address a way to do that with our code enforcement officers.
Okay, and then my other question is for section 3, number 4. Shipping containers or storage containers shall not be used for advertising purposes except for a reasonably sized identification sign and/or logo. Describe reasonable as an amount.
Yes, so when we look at this, typically we look at what the wall sign allotment is, which is 10% of the face of the structure. In this case, the structure being the storage container. Because they're varying sizes, I think going by a percentage helps regulate it more long-term. And I'm more than happy to link this to our wall sign section in our code as we bring it forward to adoption to really fine-tune that 10% being permitted.
Okay, and is there something not to exceed X amount of feet
Yeah, 200.
or square feet?
Yep, it would
Okay,
be 200, and that would be more or less naturally capped just by the size of the shipping containers. But we can include that as well.
yeah, I think it would help because somebody reasonably sized might argue that.
Very fair.
Okay, nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Zarko. Counsel, anyone else?
Mayor
Mrs.
Taylor?
Schmidt.
Just a couple of questions as well. So is there a limit to how many of these storage containers you can have?
The limit will more or less be naturally defined by the site. So it has to comply with all of your side and rear yard setbacks, and it has to be in a designated area with the foundation in place. So if you are on an incredibly large site with something that uses this as a business quite frequently, I'm thinking Stellantis, where they have the train track kind of pull in. This allows for a designated area to be using the storage containers for storage there. A small landscaping company in an M1 district, thinking Burroughs, like a 100-foot by 200-foot lot, will have a natural cap in terms of height and setback placement they can put storage containers. So the ordinance regulates that more or less by each individual site for the use.
So if a business within a strip mall, let's say, wants to have storage containers, is the area of the entire strip mall taken into consideration or just their storefront?
It would just be their storefront.
Okay. And the common height of one of these is 15 feet, so we keep them single, is that?
If you look at one of the ones that are the larger metal ones, the definition of a shipping container, then yes, the standard height is anywhere from 12 to 15 feet, which falls in line with an accessory structure. A storage container in here, thinking the steel box or the pod or similar receptacle, can be different sizes. I'm sure you've seen pods in driveways and houses after they've had floods and stuff. These will just not be allowed to be stacked past that height.
Okay.
So it kind of accounts for both of them by going off the accessory structure code.
Okay, I have nothing further, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Counsel, anyone else?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Strauss.
Thank you. Through the chair to Dr. Parcells. Dr. Parcells, what constitute a permanent foundation for these shipping containers?
So it's something that we see quite often with a dumpster enclosure. It's a piece of concrete that's paved to a certain thickness so it can withstand the weight, as opposed to a typical parking lot. So that it's not seeing crumbling or disintegration of the parking lot underneath it. And that will be reviewed by our building department upon the paving of it.
And then after this site, let's say this is a building, a company that's using this shipping container as storage for building materials, and then once the structure is built, what is their obligation once this, and they're going to be removing that container? Do they have an obligation to remove that permanent
The foundation.
Foundation, yeah.
No, they won't. It really depends on how the site is laid out. Most of our industrial parcels are completely paved within a certain margin of the setbacks. So this structure, or you'll be able to, if you wanted to, just stripe it and use it for parking spaces. But the site plan will show this designated as an area for shipping containers when you bring it in. That way we can verify that the weight bearing of that concrete is up to standard for the materials that you'll be placing on it. So if you remove the shipping containers or the use changes, there'll really be no functional distinction between the parking lot and this paved pad, as long as you stripe it to match the typical parking lots or parking space size.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Sarowski. Council, anyone else? Mr. Yanez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Dr. Purcells, what's the time frame on temporary storage containers?
So we can condition them with a maximum of 6 months out of 1 calendar year being the maximum. However, we'll work with the applicant to determine if there's a lesser time frame needed. So we'll see in terms of a rehabilitation of a site that has, say, fire damage or something that are remodeling, a full 6 months may be necessary. If there's a large event or a grand opening in a highly trafficked area, we may tell them, up front, we don't want this on Hall and Shaner. We're going to give it to you for the weekend. It has to be placed here and set aside, and we'll work with them to work out the business needs within the confines of that permit.
Okay, and can Class C explosives be stored in these containers?
No. So we have everything in here that is referenced by the International Fire Code as a hazardous material to not be allowed for storage in the containers.
So it seems that we have a fireworks company in the city that every 4th of July has a couple of these in there on their back pad. Are they not going to be allowed to store extra fireworks in these containers?
Under this ordinance, no, you would not be able to, assuming they're there permanently. For the temporary use, I'd be more than happy to visit that with our code enforcement department. And then as we look at coming up on the next fireworks season, refining our conditions of approval for temporary use permits, making sure that we're doing so in a safe manner.
Very good. And then, so code enforcement is going to take a look at these, the materials that are being stored in there, which some may be hazardous. Well, the hazardous materials aren't allowed, right?
They're not allowed.
They're not allowed. But so if they're storing these for 6 months, how do we know at some point they just don't move hazardous materials in there? Can a code enforcement officer, maybe through the chair to the city attorney, can a code enforcement officer make entry on demand for one of these containers?
Mr. Kaszewski.
No, they wouldn't be able to do that unless we put something in the code or an agreement within the use variance request.
Yep. So in the instance of the shipping containers under this ordinance, the way that this kind of would work is we meet with the applicant as they come in front of Planning Commission for a special approval. We made these a special approval so we can kind of help dictate and govern the conditions that are around these being on site. So should it come to our attention that there are hazardous materials or materials that are highly flammable as designated by the fire code, through working with the fire department and finding that out, we then have grounds to revoke the special approval and remove them from the site. So we have ability within the conditions from the Planning Commission with the special approval that's granted to say that they're violating the conditions of approval. They've changed the materials that are being stored in here, thus violating the zoning ordinance, and then we can bring it to a revocation hearing.
Are they required, I'm sorry, are they required to keep a list of inventory of what's in there?
Not currently listed, but I'm more than happy to explore doing that.
Well, I think it's probably a pretty good idea to know exactly what they have. In case there is a fire, we would like to know what's burning inside that container.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good idea. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mrs. Koski.
Thank you, Mary. Through the chair to Dr. Purcell. This is only for M1 and M2 districts?
Yes.
Can they have a shipping container there permanently?
In M1 and M2, yes. This ordinance codifies it so that they can be a permanent use. We see these as something that these businesses use long-term for on and off-site work or storage work and industrial uses. For commercial, what we'd honestly like to do is meet with the business owners and come to terms with a permanent storage solution. And that's why it's only limited to M1 and M2.
Will they have to have it re-inspected every time they change what is contained in there?
I am more than happy to explore adding that in here with our code enforcement department and our building department. I don't believe there's anything in the ordinance that would have a reinspection for this, but I'm happy to work out those logistics as we bring it back to council.
I would think that you would want to know if you approve one particular type of storage. If they change that to something else, I would think that we would want to know what the new item is that goes into the container. So yes, I would like to see you explore that.
Fantastic point. Thank you.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Koski. Anyone else? Mr. Radke?
No, I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So I want to thank administration for bringing this and for planning, for working through this. I was approached by a business owner, I don't know, I think it was back about a year ago or maybe in the winter. And they had a shipping container in there. It was an industrial business in Sterling Heights. And they had shipping containers. They looked very good. They were neat and clean. They were on the property, up against the building, on the concrete, storing their goods in there, storing inventory, storing equipment, whatever it was. And brought it to my attention that he was getting notifications from code enforcement that it wasn't permitted. It seemed very reasonable to me for him to be using that shipping container. It's a way of allowing relatively inexpensive expansion of storage for our industrial property owners, industrial businesses. We know that for many years we've been reaching almost 0% vacancy, and it's a blessing and a curse because it doesn't allow for anywhere for expanding businesses to grow within the city of Sterling Heights. So I'm glad to see this here. A couple of questions though. What is the purpose of having this go through special approval land use? Because that's just an administrative hurdle for business owners, property owners to jump through in order to get this approval. What's the feeling about why this couldn't just be something that planning could administratively approve?
Yeah, definitely happy to touch on that a bit. So kind of a twofold answer for you. The first part is related to site plan approvals. Planning Commission has the authority to approve site plans. Most of our industrial parcels have approved site plans on file with the city. This would trigger changes in terms of the landscaping plan, of which we'd like them to see come up into compliance with our current code of ordinances, paving and storage areas, and potentially large screening for going around them depending on where they're located. Therefore, we can amend the site plan at the same time by going to Planning Commission for the one meeting, getting all of our records up to date and ensuring that we have it consistent with the ordinance. And then part two really is a life safety question. As a lot of comments came up tonight and are shown here, there's a lot of things that could warrant hazards for these materials of how they're being used and what's being stored in them. This gives us the ability to revoke the potential for these businesses to be storing them until they come into compliance with our code of ordinances. So we have grounds here to make them so that they're using the storage containers in a way that are not hazardous for potential fires, explosions, plumbing and electric being on site, or any type of stacking hazards that we can come through, clean up any violations with them, and if they're falling out of line again, revoke their special approval land use and work to clean up the site.
What do we do in terms of, an industrial property, a manufacturing business or other business that's operating in an M1 or M2? Do we go in there and inspect what type of inventory they have, what type of equipment they have, where they're storing things, and whether they have chemicals in there or flammable material? I mean, do we go into industrial businesses regularly to inspect that and determine what they have inside of them?
Yeah, so our fire department does a fantastic job at that, and so does our building department when we go through our building permitting and site plan review phase. Certain things of how high scaffolding can be with the type of material being stored and how high the building is, if it's sprinkled or not, is all covered by these city departments on site, I believe, quite regularly, making sure that all of their components of fire safety are up to code as well.
But we don't have any sort of regulation that requires the business owner to notify us as inventory is coming in and out, as materials are coming in and out of the building, as equipment is coming in and out of the building, right?
No, I mean, most of that comes down to the use type that they initially apply for. So we have a good understanding of what every industrial business is being used for and what type of materials will be stored there and how they'll be stored before they're even open and operational. And should that change or the use change or any of that be triggered, it leads to a reinspection of the city and evaluating the use, building, and fire code of it.
Yeah, so I think that if we're going to keep it under special approval land use, we get an idea of what this shipping container is going to be used for. And that's fine. I mean, I'm still not sold on why it needs to be something that goes in front of the planning commission. I think that, you know, for the most part, you've got business owners that do not want to cause a massive fire that burns down the building for which houses their inventory, houses their equipment, and is where their employees are working. I think for the most part, businesses, I think, can be trusted that they're not going to be doing something outrageous. I would be concerned about making a requirement that we have to inspect and re-inspect every time, because when I was talking to this business owner, and he had mentioned that there are many others that use this, that one of the benefits is that they are, you know, they're easy, they're just right there, they're easy to change out over and over and over. And so as inventory is coming in, if you have excess inventory, you can put it in there, you can take out from there. So, I mean, I get it that if it's going from just storing widgets to storing bombs, then yeah, we want to know that. But if it's just moving equipment in and out and in and out and in and out, that would be administratively burdensome for the business owner. And I would say, if we're not already doing that with the space they have inside of four walls, I wouldn't want these shipping containers to be more restrictive. So if we're going to be getting that information on the front end, and if they've been notified that these are this is the universe of permitted uses inside of the shipping container, I would say as long, you know, they should be notified of that. And like, cause it's, you know, there's nothing stopping a commercial building from storing, you know, harmful, dangerous chemicals inside of their building when they don't have the approval for it, except for that they shouldn't do it, and it's prohibited, and every few years they might get inspected and see that, right? So I would say the shipping containers, I wouldn't want to regulate the shipping containers any more than we already are regulating the industrial buildings. That's my take on it, and you know, I'm comfortable with the ordinance as it's written and wouldn't want to see it regulated too much more than that. So I want to thank, again, Planning Commission for taking this up, approving it, and the Planning Department for getting it in front of us. And that's all I've got. Anybody else? Anything else? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up tonight, thank you, Dr. Parcell, is the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on the consent agenda? Not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is a consideration item. This is to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and Michigan Association of Public Employees Technical Office Employees Union. We do have a presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. As you just referenced, the MAPE group is the last group that we've been working with to implement the 980 schedule. So as you well know from all the previous agreements and MOUs that you've approved, the workforce has transitioned to a hybrid work schedule wherein they're able to complete a 10-hour or a 10-day work period into 9 days. Now, they don't work less. In fact, they work the same amount of hours. It's just condensed into 9 days instead of 10. So that means that every other week, those employees get a Friday off. And there's some exceptions, but for the most part, it's Fridays. So that's 26 Fridays a year. And the reason this has been so important to the organization is, number one, remote working really didn't work for us as an organization. It did during the COVID crisis, but after that, it just didn't work. There were winners and losers. We really couldn't offer it up to everyone. But by transitioning to this hybrid work schedule, it has vastly improved work-life balance for our employees, employee retention and recruitment, which is critically important in this very tight labor market. So this is really cutting edge for the municipal sector. I'm not aware of other cities that are doing this, certainly in Michigan. I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but I haven't heard of many. So I think we can take some pride in knowing that we're kind of blazing a trail here, and I really appreciate the mayor and city council's support on these MOUs over the past year. The employees that are under this new work schedule have spoken very highly of it. I think they really appreciate it, and it has vastly improved morale across the organization. So this really is the last group. We do have a DPW supervisory and field that we'll be discussing this work schedule with, but their contract opens up next year. It expires April 30th, so we'll be at the bargaining table with them very shortly. Those will actually be the last two groups. So the entire organization will be on this. And as you know, the fire department's already on this hybrid schedule. They work 24 and off 48. And same with the police department. They work 10-hour shifts and then get 3 days, a 3-day weekend, if you will. Depends on where it's at during the week and their schedules, but they get 3 days off a week. And it has worked very well for our police department. So that's issue number one under this MOU. And then in addition, as you know, we've been moving employees, increasing their 401A accounts from around 5% up to 7%. We used to be at 7% before the Great Recession. We had to scale that back due to cost-cutting needs, and now we're restoring the benefit that our employees used to have. This, too, is vitally important, primarily because we don't offer defined benefit plans anymore for general employees. Only police and fire have those defined benefit plans, better known as fixed pensions. General employees no longer have that. So we want to make sure we're very competitive and maybe even above competitive on our 401As. Here again, a really important retention and recruitment tool. So having said all of that, I respectfully request the mayor and city council approval of the MOU that is before you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vanderpool, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and MAPE Technical Office Employees Union implementing the 975 and 980 modified work week and enhance employer contribution to the 401A retirement accounts, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign on behalf of the city.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Just a comment. As Mr. Vanderpool said, this is one of the last bargaining units to come before. We're just making them in line with everyone else. I appreciate and I'm glad that we were able to do this for our employees, and I'm glad that they're accepting it and embracing it as well, and morale has improved. Nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Council? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is to consider a nomination to the City of Sterling Heights Board of Ordinance Appeals 2. Anyone in the audience? Council, we need a motion. Council, anyone? This is the Board of Ordinance Appeals 2, open seat, city council appointment, partial term ending 6/30/26. It is an alternate. Is there any nomination? If not, I would entertain a motion to postpone this item to the November 21st, 2023 city council meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is to consider appointments to the City of Sterling Heights Youth Advisory Board. Anyone in the audience? Council, we have, looks like 5 open seats. These are council appointments to terms ending June 30, 2024. Is there anyone who would like to make one or more appointments to the Youth Advisory Board?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Radke.
resolve to appoint Cameron Orjada, Grace Simon, and Dron Dada to the Youth Advisory Board to terms ending June 30th, 2024, subject to the appointees meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter subsection 4.03, taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Mr. Radke?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council, anyone else? I'll just say, these are great candidates, young boys and girls who are residents of Sterling Heights, doing phenomenally well in school, and I think they'll make great additions. So, council, with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, yeah, we have two more. So before we move on, we have two more appointments that we will have to postpone. We could go to, I guess we could go to the first meeting in November or the second meeting in November. Anybody have a preference?
I would say first meeting in November, because if you get into the second meeting in November, I mean, the term is only till June as it is.
Do we have candidates, though, or should we just table it until we have candidates?
Why don't we do, well, when's our meeting? November 8th? No, we don't have an election, right?
No.
No, we got nothing then. So our meeting will be November 7th. Why don't we try to find some and
For the first one.
so I would entertain a motion to postpone the two open seats to the November 7th, 2023 city council meeting.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to communications from citizens, which is appropriate because just by one, it's communications from citizens and not citizen. So, citizens, we'll move on to reports from city administration. Mr. Vanderpool, anything tonight?
Nothing further, Mayor, thanks.
Mr. Koszybski?
Yes, Mayor, we have those two items for closed session.
Okay, thank you. Council, any reports, new business?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Zarko?
Okay. I think we all know that Breast Cancer Awareness Month is the month of October. And it's safe to say that we all know somebody that it was either diagnosed with breast cancer, has gone, through treatment, survived, or maybe did not survive. So it affects women in our community, and in the future, I'd like to see us do a resolution to designate it, in the future is October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I think it would be great, since we don't have the resolution, that we actually color the halo pink maybe during October, unless there's another organization that has a date set aside that they want it a particular color. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Zarko. Do we need to give you, and I think you've got clear direction there. Anybody want to speak up against that? Didn't think so.
Oh, good choice then, huh?
Council, anybody else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraske?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yarko?
Yes.
Kraske?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 7-0. We will adjourn into closed session. We will not be returning tonight. So that is all for us. Thank you very much. Have a great night.